Having done quite a lot of printmaking courses, my students end up asking me about inking a la Poupee. Inking a la Poupee means that you put all the colors onto your etching or dry point plate in one go. Gives you a very special result. It's kind of very transparent, quite romantic, very pastel look. I'm going to show you in this short film how to do that in much more detail, much more precise. First of all, we're going to start with going through the materials that you're going to need to be inking up a plate. If you've done any printmaking, which I assume you might have if you're watching this film, you will know what tarlatan is. Tarlatan is the material that you actually use to wipe your plate. You also need etching inks. Etching inks comes in a lot of different brands. You can buy them from a lot of local art suppliers. I use Charbonnel, mostly because I like it. If you're not going to do an awful lot of printing, then buying the tubes is going to be much more economical because they tend to not dry at all, whereas the tins dry quite quickly. You get a skin on them. I know when you go to the shop and you're going to have a look at all these tubes, you're going to think, oh my god, this is going to be a fortune. But a tube of etching ink, when you're inking up a la Poupee, and I work professionally, I tell you, it lasts a long, long time. So don't be so scared of the cost, because you will have etching inks and they don't dry in the smaller tube. You will have the etching inks for a long, long time. You really only need the basic colors. This is a little bit like painting. Of course, it depends what your plates look like. It depends on your taste in colors. So go have a look at the color range and try them out. I'll just tell you something, and that is that a clear red is very tricky. It doesn't really exist. I mixed up some clear reds from the geranium red mixed with a little bit of the cerulean blue, and you get quite a strong red. But it's a tricky color. Anyway, you need a little bit of purified linseed oil. You need some plain tissue paper. This can be had in most craft shops. The reason I like white is because you can actually see the plate through the tissue paper, which is very handy. You need just some normal, everyday cotton buds. We need a bit of either newspaper or old telephone books. Couple of palette knives for mixing up that ink. We're going to start off by making a dabber. A dabber is what I use to apply the inks to the plate. And I like to make the dabbers in different sizes because some areas, if they're a little bit bigger, you'll just use a smaller dabber to apply that different color. To make my dabbers, I use old, already kind of full of ink tarlatana. I scrunch it up and put the leftovers into a bowl. So actually this is quite solid. Now if you're just starting out, you might not have an awful lot of tarlatana to use. I mean, obviously you're going to start out with a nice and fresh one. So in those cases you can actually make a little cotton ball and put that in there, so you don't need such a big piece of tarlatana. It's just a little kind of tip on how to get away with it a bit cheaper. Cut up some smaller pieces for making those smaller dabbers. And you can actually make dabbers that are absolutely teeny weeny. Some people don't really like the cotton buds and prefer to make their own little dabbers. I make my dabbers from old tarlatana because that's what I like working with. But I also know that a lot of people use different things. They use, for example, old felt, old printmaking blankets from etching presses. You can use cloth, but cloth tends to give you a lot less control over how much ink you're choosing. It kind of wipes the plate at the same time as you're applying the ink. So that's a preference thing. You can also, to put on the base color, use a scraper instead of a dabber. I just make scrapers out of old pieces of lino, mostly because it wipes clean very easily and it actually keeps quite nice and sturdy. But of course you can just use cardboard and throw them away when they start, you know, getting a little bit messy or whatever. Anything that's a little bit hard but will not scratch the plate, remember that, okay? It can't be anything that's going to scratch your plate, obviously. I also know that some art shops, they actually sell scrapers, rubber scrapers or plastic scrapers, but why spend the money if you can make them yourself? That's my thought. So I think we should move on and have a little look at actually inking up the plate. Thank you for watching the introduction. In part 2, we ink the plate.